Good morning, students. Let's start with a new chapter today, Good Habits. I'm sure the meaning is easy, and I'm sure you all know what is the meaning of good habits, right? So let's start with the chapter. An unfortunate thing about this world is that the good habits are much easier to give up than the bad ones. You know, uh, the worst thing actually, it means that, it is very easy to give up good habits, but it is very difficult to give up bad habits. And that is what we need to learn. We need to get in good habits more. We need to learn good habits rather than learning the bad ones. See, you can easily give up or leave good habits, but you can never leave up bad habits that easily. That is what you need to learn. See, learning objectives. Okay, before I start, let me make it very clear. Your moral science test will be in the form of MCQs, right? Multiple choice questions. So understand, read all the chapters. Questions will not come from the end of the chapter. Questions will be from the chapter. So when you go through the stories, when you go through the chapter, go through every line. There will be general and short questions. Okay, so you need to understand one thing. You don't have to learn the questions given after the chapter, but everything from the chapter, right? So keep reading the chapter so that you know, okay, these are short question and answers that you'll be getting. So it could be anything, right? So make sure you go through them nicely. Now let's continue. Learning objectives. Politeness, like all other good habits, make life easier to live. So when you are polite, it makes your life easier, right? So you have to learn this good habit of being polite with everyone, right? Being polite is very, very important. Give me a minute, please. So politeness is very important. Let's continue. See the next one. Good words cool our minds and soothe our hearts. So when you speak good words, it actually, makes your mind cool, and it even gives happiness to your heart. Now see, the world without polite words would be full of quarrels. Like if you see the world, if there are no polite words and everyone is being rude, then what happens is there's no love. There will be quarrels only. Both good and bad habits are contagious. Means it can easily spread from one person to another. So if you're being good, you're spreading good all around you. But if you're being bad, then you're actually spreading bad habits. They spread very quickly. The fitting answer to all hatred and strife is a good conduct. So the best thing that you can do is have a good conduct. Story time. Once upon a time, there was a newspaper editor, Mr. Mean No Good, who hated flowery language and considered it waste of words. Now, there was a time when there was this editor in the newspaper, right? His name was Mr. Mean Good, No Good. So the name itself says that the person is somewhat of no use and he's mean, okay? And he hated flowery language, means kind language, and he thought it was the waste of words. He was known to be miserly in use of words and got angry when he read a story or report with words that he thought were unnecessary. So he was a man, he was an editor in the newspaper, and whenever he used to read a report and any article which talked about, the good part or whatever, so he used to get angry with it. And he never liked it. He never liked flowery language or language filled with good words. His colleagues at the newspaper desk hated Mr. No Good because he summarized all beautifully written reports into small and boring lumps of text. Now there was his colleague, you understand, the one who is working with him. So he actually hated Mr. No Good for a reason, that he used to cut short all the good language, all the good text, and he only wanted the boring lump of news. He's a butcher who chops off beautiful words mercilessly. Now, this is what he used to think. Some people, they even thought that he's a butcher. He just removes the beautiful language, and that too mercilessly. Others thought of him as the most boring person on a mission to eliminate everything that was interesting in this world. Some people, they even thought that he's a man who removes all the interesting things from the world. So he is, not a good kind of a person, just a boring person. However, what irritated Mr. No Good the most was the use of polite words like please and thank you. So he's no good, Mr. No Good. So what he hated the most, the polite words like please and thank you. You are welcome, etc. He thought these words were useless words that wasted precious space in write-ups. So he thought that, while writing an article or something, if you're using words that are polite, that are beautiful, then it is waste. It is useless, unnecessary. He had vowed that he would get rid of all such words from the ecosystem of at least his own newspaper, if not the entire world. He had vowed means he had taken an oath of removing every polite word from his newspaper agency. So if not from the entire world, he'll at least remove it from his own newspaper. Mr. No Good's newspaper used to be highly regarded one before he took over and as its editor. Now, Mr. No Good's paper was highly, regarded. People used to love it till the time he was not an editor. Now, the day he became an editor, everything changed. Its reputation was so good that the newspaper not only sustained, despite Mr. No Good's eccentricities, but also continued to enjoy its dedicated readership. Now the paper was really good and it was appreciated by most of the readers, and every time the readers were increasing. They were sustained, they've actually stayed. Sustained means staying. The people who had been following it religiously for decades did not immediately stop subscription. Now there were people who were actually reading this paper for years, and because they were good and nice people, they didn't stop the subscription then and there. Why they wanted to stop it? Because of the change of the language. Since Mr. No Good's newspaper was widely read, what it published and how it published were always taken seriously. Now, of course, whatever he used to publish, it was taken seriously by the people. So the sudden disappearance of all polite and beautiful words from its vocabulary had an unpleasant effect on the vocabulary of its readers too. Now, when he removed the polite words from the newspaper, the readers who used to read it, even in their vocabulary, these kind and polite words were removed. There were no more politeness in the society. Right, the ones who were specially reading his newspaper. In no time at all, the words that were once considered good began to be forgotten by people. So, there was a time when people, they loved these polite words. Now people, they were just ignoring it. Why? Because they were learning it from his newspaper. As a result, most people like Mr. No Good himself became ill-tempered, grumpy, impolite, and rough. Now, just like Mr. No Good was grumpy, impolite, bad-natured, ill-tempered, the same thing happened with the society. Good words generate softer feelings in people and have a soothing effect on them. See, when you use good words, what happens is you become good. Your heart becomes kind. Because of their absence in general conversations, the irritability of people began to increase. Now, because these good words were missing, the kindness in the hearts of the people was missing. So finally, people, they became wild. Over a year or so, the entire city was under the grip of bad temper and irritability. Each person seemed to be waiting to pounce on each other. and pick a fight. So people, they were waiting for the moment when they can actually fight with each other. So nobody was kind anymore. The situation became so bad that there was a fear that the citizens might start a riot. So finally, the situation was so bad that somehow people thought that very soon there would be wars. The city administration was concerned about the disturbed law and order situation, but none knew how to control the city and its people, because people in the administration had also become ill-tempered and as the ordinary citizens. Now, I'm sorry, even the management, even the administration of the town, of that place, had no idea how to control it, how to, make it much better. Why? Because even they were following the same thing. Even they were in the same category, ill-tempered, impolite, and bad-natured person. When riots actually started and people began to be killed, the country's central government took cognizance and deployed its own reserve police personnel to control the situation. So when everything was out of control, then this country's central government sent their own employees to control the situation. Strangely, the situation was a sudden improvement as soon as outsiders came to the city. The personnel did not have to use any force or aggression. They only requested people to calm down in polite words, and each person just melted in a smooth feeling of joy. So the people who came from outside, they never used any physical force or something, but they used polite words to cool them down, to calm them down. And the people who were fighting, creating nuisance, they all were cool and calm. These outsiders came like a gush of fresh air and brought with them the long lost glory of polite words. The city was saved in spite of Mr. Nogood. So maybe Mr. Nogood was there, but the city was saved all because of the polite words. Okay, let's move to slice of life. Give me a minute. Okay, slice of life. Use of good and polite language can have a magical effect on our sight. Good words give a sense of happiness, security, confidence, satisfaction, and friendliness. Rough words and behavior leads to discontent. Okay, discontent means unsatisfied, bad temper, intolerance, and irritability, when you get irritated and you just cannot tolerate things. Our behavior and outlook towards life is affected by the words we speak. How we speak to others matters a lot. It talks a lot about your conduct, your behavior, your inner self. So make sure when you're using your words, you're using them wisely and in a polite manner. Always be polite to others, not only to your elders, to your teachers or your parents or your relatives, but be polite to everyone. When you are polite, you actually, displays your good conduct, character. Our behavior, okay, healthy communication is essential for a healthy interpersonal relationship. So when you talk in a healthy way, in a good way, then of course your relationship with others always improves. So make sure that you use your words wisely. Okay, so that is it in this chapter, good habits. Now see, in your exam you will get questions, not from the after the chapter, not these questions, but of course from the chapter in between. So just do one thing, read the chapter once or twice. So make sure that you have the information related to anything from the chapter. You won't get a question, why did Mr. Mean Nogood colleagues hate him? You'll not get long questions. You'll get short question and answers in the form of multiple choice questions. So make sure you just have to tick the right answer. So the best thing is read the chapter. Okay. So that is it. Now we have another chapter here, self-reliance. Right, we'll start with it. It is on page number 40. Just open page 40. Now, self-reliance means where you should trust on your own self, right? You should trust on your own abilities. Like the way we did self-worth, in the same way we have self-reliance. Freedom comes from strength and self-reliance. So you need to believe on your skills. You need to believe in your own self. Learning objectives. A person who faces a difficult situation boldly is always a confident and self-driven person. So a person who, faces the challenge or is ready to face the difficulties is always a self-driven person who actually trusts or he believes in his own self. The ability locked inside every individual is enough to tide over all difficulties. Means as humans, we all have the ability to fight anything that is difficult in our way. Human beings are a complete creature, owing both strengths and weaknesses within. So we humans are, we have the goodness and we have the bad, whatever it is within us. So our strengths, our weaknesses are within us. We need to work on them. We need to identify the power of our own will and use it to become greater in life. So whatever willpower we have, we should use it in the right direction to make sure that we become greater or we do greater in our life. Now we have a beautiful story here. I'll just start with the story. If we are able to complete it, then we'll complete it in this video itself. If not, then of course in the next video. On February 24, 1955, a baby was born in San Francisco to Joanna Shibley and John Gindari. Thinking they were not yet ready to take care of the child, the young parents gave their unnamed son up for adoption. Now just imagine, there were these parents, right? Joanna and John, they had a son. And they thought that they are not ready to take care of the child, and they gave up the child for adoption. The boy was adopted by Clara, an accountant, and Paul, a U.S. Coast Guard veteran, who lived in Mountain View, California, an area that is today famously known as Silicon Valley. Now the parents who adopted him, they were from California, Silicon Valley, and they were Clara and Paul. The boy and his new father worked on electronics in the family garage. Paul showed his son how to take apart and reconstruct electronic gadgets, a hobby that instilled confidence, tenacity, and mechanical prowess in the young boy. Now, of course, his new father, Paul, he took him to the family garage. They used to sit there. They used to open the electronic gadgets and, then maybe use some ideas or whatever. And then they used to reconstruct it. So somehow this young boy, he was really attracted by the electronic gadgets. While the boy was intelligent and innovative thinker, he found the formal education system of the time boring and frustrating. Now this child was intelligent, so when we talk about school going and education, he found it boring. Given his great performance in studies, his teachers offered him double promotion. But both he and his parents were opposed to the idea. Now he was very good at studies, right? And his teachers, they offered him double promotion. However, he and his parents, they refused. A few years later, while the boy was in high school, he met a young man who was attending the University of California. Given their common interest and self-driven attitude, they clicked instantly and became good friends. Now, of course, these two friends, he went to the college, university, he met his friend, he met a person who had the same kind of interest, and of course, they hit it well and they turned into very good friends. The duo loved exploring electronics. They loved electronics, studying microchips and designing computers, something that was quite unusual back then. So they loved designing computers, working on the microchips. But this was not at all, it was not in fashion at that time. In 1974, the boy, now 19 years old, took a job as a video game designer. Several months later, he left the company to find spiritual enlightenment and came to India. After returning to US in 1976, he met his old friend with whom he started his interest of electronics and set up an electronics company. Now finally, this boy, he grew up, he was very happy, he turned into a video game designer, and then he, just to enlighten himself with spirituality, he came to India, he settled here. And then when he returned back to US, with his friend, he started one electronic company. Okay, while the duo started in the boy's family garage. So where they started this company? In the family garage. Okay, we'll continue from here in the next video. Right, that is enough for today. We have half of this chapter and the other chapter. We'll do it. Right, thank you.